across our product range about solar, but for everything. Our focus is innovation. Our focus is bringing new products and solutions to the market and satisfying our customers. I'm here to give you a little bit of an overview of Huawei as a too many people to even think about. I think the most important thing to remember here is that nearly half of these employees, so you can see here on the page, 96,000 people are employed in research and development. So this immediately gives you a very good idea about what the focus. I'm here to give you a little bit of an overview of Huawei as a company, specifically related to the solar industry, and give you some insights into the global and specifically the European PV markets and what the challenges and the future trends are from a technology point of view, but also from a financing point of view. It's going to be about a 15 to 20 minute presentation, and I hope you enjoy it. So just briefly on Huawei, Huawei employs around 200,000 people globally. We're absolutely massive company. Sometimes too many people to even think about. And I think the most important thing to remember here is that nearly half of these employees, so you can see here on the page, 96,000 people are employed in research and development. So this immediately gives you a very good idea about what the focus is in Huawei across our product ranges. Of course, we're not talking specifically about solar, but for everything. Our focus is innovation. Our focus is bringing new products and solutions to the market and satisfying our customer needs through innovation. And this brings then the revenue. The revenue which has been growing steadily over the past few years. So you see here that even in a very tough year, which was 2019, with several sort of geopolitical challenges, Huawei managed to grow over 18%. And actually very recently, it's not updated in this chart because the numbers are from last week. In the first half of this year, Huawei managed to grow compared to last year, despite even more challenges this year, including, of course, the global pandemic, which has affected supply in the first part of the year, and demand, especially in the second part of the year, across segments. The solar inverter business unit is now fully integrated in the digital energy business unit within EBG, and the digital energy business unit is a vision for electrification and digitalization of the energy business. So with also products and solution for electric vehicle charging, off-grid and mini-grid solutions, and data centers and UPS and so on. If you are more interested, I believe there's going to be more technical discussions later on during this conference. If they are not covered, please feel free to get in touch with us for further information on that product. I think specifically to the solar industry, what we're really quite proud of since stepping into this business in 2013, we really have changed the way utility scale projects, and by utility scale here I mean above 5 megawatt, generally ground mounted, the way these utility scale projects are designed and built. We are very proudly manufacturers of string inverters only, so only modular design. And by doing so, we have really changed the market. We have brought out a very reliable multi-MPPT string inverter solution, which has really sent shockwaves through the industry. And you can see here that the share of string inverters within the utility scale segment has grown over the years steadily. Now, some have called this the Huawei effect. Now, we love to take a big part of the credit for this. However, there are some other drivers that are influencing this trend towards string inverters. The first one, of course, is the increased size in terms of power of the string inverters themselves. Back in 2013, when we started, string inverters used to be 20, maximum 30 kilowatt of power per unit. Now in 2020, this unit can give you, 185 kilowatt of power, so 6 times as much. So this is huge technological development, mainly in power density and power of the string inverter itself, which has allowed this trend to grow towards distributed architecture. And of course, with this, the capex, so the string inverter cost has also decreased, relatively speaking. This was another huge driver for the growth of string inverters in PV. Other factors here are the innovation of bifacial modules, especially from this year onwards. You see more and more projects with bifacial technology. The bifacial technology is best matched with multiple MPPT string inverters. Therefore, our product lends itself very well for developments with bifacial, simply to minimize the mismatches between front and rear side of the modules and between different strings. So multiple MPPT is the natural choice for any bifacial development. Other reasons behind this trend are, of course, that the solar market is now becoming a global market. Back 10 years ago, for those of you who are in this industry for a long time, you will remember that the global solar industry was actually just Germany, maybe the US and Spain and maybe India. Yeah, this was the global solar industry. There were very few markets above 1 gigawatts, if any. And now we're seeing national gigawatt markets are maybe 20, 25, or even 30 this year. So there's 30 countries around the world with more than 1 gigawatt deployment per year. And this, of course, is hugely encouraging for the PV industry as a whole. But in some of these countries, some of them are relatively new to PV or quite remote, the deployment of utility scale installations is best done with the modular string inverter design rather than a conventional central inverter design, simply because service infrastructure in these countries may not be present to support central inverter O&M activities. It's really difficult for a central inverter to open up offices and service infrastructure in every possible PV country that is popping up around the world. So the natural choice is string inverters. I think these are some of the drivers behind this trend. And as I said before, the Huawei effect is clearly one of them. Some references around the world here. I think what is most striking, I was tasked to talk a little bit about sort of the global trends within the utility scale PV industry. And I think this chart shows exactly what is happening. First of all, projects are getting bigger and bigger. I mean, a few years ago, a 50 megawatt project would have been an absolute gigantic project. Now, I think we see projects easily 100, 200, 300, 500 megawatts even in Europe, completely unthinkable only a few years back. So the project size is increasing dramatically. We are moving from a purely subsidy-driven industry with some very forward-thinking governments who introduced government incentives. We're moving towards what some call the PP age, so the age of the PPA. Projects that are built regardless of national subsidies or any sort of tax incentive or whatever. They're built purely to power industry and to generate electricity and then sell it to the market under a PPA, or in some cases even with no PPA, with a merchant approach. So sell the electricity on the market as and when. And this is also clearly a driver behind the size of the projects increasing. It is easier to make a project like that work at a larger scale, or at least in clusters. I think the other big global trend that we're seeing are the terrifying, let me say, prices that we're seeing of global PV auctions and renewable auctions globally. A more recent example is Portugal. Now, with its difficulties of sort of comparison, but also in the Middle East and in Latin America, we see really an LCOE plummeting for solar. Solar has been recognized as being the most cost-effective energy source, electricity source, which is really amazing if you think about it. So we have the winning technology. We're working in the right segment, also what is really interesting here is that players are becoming more and more global. So they really sort of invest in opportunities and projects around the world. They understand the technology better now. They know it works. They know it's a very predictable way to generate electricity. They understand the market. They understand the technology risks. They have a lot of experience. And this is where I think Hungary will actually bloom. And really, there's going to be a huge boost in the market on the back of everyone else's mistakes. Hungary would be a fantastic PV market, I think, with the help of some international developers or investors, but also with a flourishing local industry, whether it is in development or simply in construction or in investment, why not? Certainly, the O&M players tend to be local. And the whole industry around it, technical advisors, construction companies, mechanical and electrical installers, and so on. And this I have seen happening in many countries around the world. Very briefly on other global trends that are influencing the solar industry. One is sustainability, of course. So it's not enough to build a solar farm to be sustainable. The product and solution used in that infrastructure needs to have high level of sustainability and lower the CO2 footprint. And Huawei for sure is leader in this, not just for solar inverters, but across our product range. And I think the other is compliance. So compliance with local grid codes, compliance with the RFG, so the requirement for generators, which is being harmonized across Europe. Again, here, I think if you have specific questions about how inverters and the solution around it needs to comply with specific requirements of Hungary, please get in touch with our team. But this is certainly becoming more and more important. So it's not just about connecting a big solar farm to the grid. It's about making it compliant with the grid requirement. And here I would say the topic, of course, is grid friendliness and grid compliance. Now this clearly sets apart in our ability and our knowledge of grid compliance. And perhaps last but not least, sorry, the trend towards bifacial. I think bifacial has been underestimated for way too long, and I think we are now at the stage where those large utilities investing with mainly equity investment into big utility scale applications around the world didn't have to rely on any specific technical advisor from a third-party independent consultant for a bank who could just do what they felt was right to do. They have invested in bifacial plus multiple MPPT string inverters, and they are now reaping the benefits, because the boost in yield is it's really interesting. I mean, you know, it depends on several factors: the height of the tracker, the albedo of the ground, and everything else. But it is a substantial gain on yield, and of course, so I think this will be a trend that will also affect Hungary as you're stepping into the top league this year and next year. You will certainly hear more and more about bifacial technology. And as I said before, with bifacial technology, the only really compatible inverter technology is a multiple MPPT inverter to make the most of the bifacial. I always make the metaphor about a Ferrari on plastic wheels. You don't want to have all that power from the Ferrari and not being able to put it down on the ground with the wrong wheels. You really want a multiple MPPT technology. Ferrari is perhaps the wrong example. I should probably change my metaphor to use an electric vehicle, less CO2. But being half Italian, you see, it's stronger than what I think. Grid stability, as I said before, and compliance with the grid is another huge topic. And again, here, more in-depth discussions from a technical point of view are required. We see the short circuit ratio, the CSR, getting lower and lower, which means the grid stability in some countries, so the network stability is really at risk with the high penetration of renewables everywhere. But the good news is that it is absolutely possible to fix this, especially in Europe with this RFG. There are some very strict requirements for grid integration now. Not all inverter manufacturers are able to comply with this. Not all have the hardware to comply with this and the knowledge to be able to design for this. But renewable penetration into the grid can be very high, and it is still possible to have a very reliable and stable grid at very low cost. So the energy trilemma about the cost, CO2 emission, and stability can actually be resolved. And I think, well, that's more or less what I wanted to say.